A shadow cuts across the valley before the sound ever reaches the ground. For one frozen second, every animal below reacts before it understands why. Deer stop feeding. Birds explode out of the trees. A mountain goat presses itself against the rock. Even a wolf lowers its body into the grass, not because it knows what is coming, but because every instinct in its body tells it to disappear. Above them, something turns against the wind. A dragon. Not a monster from a storybook. Not a magical beast that breaks every law of nature. An animal. And in nature, even the most terrifying animal is trapped by rules. If dragons were real, their wings would have to lift flesh, bone, blood, and muscle. Their jaws would have to close on struggling prey. Their hearts would have to pump hard enough to feed a body larger than a horse. And if they could breathe fire, that fire could not be magic. It would need fuel, chemistry, control, and a cost. One mistake in the air could break a wing. One failed hunt could drain the body. One winter storm could turn the king of the valley into scavenger food. This is the life of a dragon as nature might build it. A flying apex predator shaped not by fantasy, but by hunger, weather, injury, mating, age, and death. But the animal every creature fears does not begin as ruler of the sky. It begins in darkness. Inside a warm cave high on a cliff face, an egg shifts in the mineral sand. The nest is not soft. It is a shallow hollow scraped into broken stone, old bones, ash-colored dust, and sand warmed by heat rising from cracks deep inside the mountain. Cold winds tear across the cliff outside, but inside the cave, the ground stays just warm enough for life. For a creature that may one day breathe flame, heat matters from the beginning. The shell trembles again. Inside, a young dragon presses against the wall of the egg. Its body is folded tight. Its wings are sealed against its sides. Its claws are already sharp, but its muscles are weak. It has the weapons of a predator before it has the strength to use them. When the shell breaks, the valley does not notice. There is no roar, no thunder, no fire, only a small, wet, shivering animal dragging itself into the air for the first time. It is almost blind. Its legs shake. Its wings are thin, folded membranes, so fragile that one tear could end its life before it begins. At this age, a dragon is not the danger. It is the meal. A fox could take it. A large eagle could carry it away. A snake could slide through the cave and kill it before it ever sees the sky. That is why the mother chooses the cliff with almost perfect care. Height is the first defense. Very few animals can reach the cave mouth. Heat is the second. The warm stone keeps the eggs alive through cold nights and sudden storms. Smell is the third. The cave carries the scent of scales, old bones, burned minerals, and adult dragon musk. Many nest raiders stop at the entrance because the smell alone tells them the risk is too high. But no nest is perfectly safe. One night, while the mother is away, a thin shape moves along the ledge. A snake. It slides through the rocks, tongue tasting the air. The hatchling freezes. Cannot fly. Cannot run. Its only defense is the cave itself. Then the mother returns. Claws strike the stone outside. A low breath rolls into the cave. The snake feels the vibration, turns, and disappears back into the rocks. The hatchling survives the night, but surviving the nest is only the first test. The cliff can protect it for a while. One day, the same cliff will demand that it jump. To reach that day, it must grow fast, but not too fast. A dragon that becomes too heavy too early may never fly. A dragon that stays too small may never defend itself. Its body must solve a brutal problem. Become powerful enough to hunt, but light enough for the air to carry. Its first meals are simple. Soft strips of meat brought by the mother, eggs stolen from seabirds, insects near the cave mouth, and fish easy enough to swallow. Each bite builds muscle, bone, and the thin wing membranes that will one day decide whether it lives or falls. The hatchling spends hours watching the sky. Birds pass the cliff face every morning. They do not fight the air. They read it. They ride it. When wind hits the mountain, it rises, curls, and pushes upward. To a small bird, that lift is useful. To a dragon, it is survival. A real dragon could not flap forever like a tiny songbird. A body this large would need help from the land itself. The cliff, the heat, the rising air, and the timing of the wind would become part of its life. So the first lesson of a dragon's life is not fire. It is wind. Weeks pass. The young dragon's eyes sharpen. The sense of smell deepens. Its bones grow hollow in places, like a bird's, but strengthened with internal struts, like the beams inside a bridge. Its chest grows deep to hold powerful lungs. The shoulders thicken where flight muscles pull against the frame. The wings unfold wider each week. They are not magic sails. They are living skin, sensitive and vulnerable, stretched between long finger-like bones. A tear in one wing could mean weeks without flying. For a young dragon, weeks on the ground could mean death. Then, one morning, the mother leaves and does not return by sunrise. Hunger pushes the hatchling to the cave entrance. Below, the valley drops away for hundreds of feet. The air smells of pine, wet stone, and animals moving through the trees. The young dragon opens its wings. For a moment, it looks almost ready. Then the ledge breaks beneath one foot. It does not fly. It falls. The cliff face rushes past. Rocks blur. The valley floor rises too fast. The young dragon kicks, twists, and opens its wings in panic. One wing catches the rising air. The other folds badly, and the body rolls sideways. For a few terrifying seconds, the fall belongs to gravity. Then the wind catches it. The drop becomes a glide. The glide becomes a turn. The young dragon slams into a lower slope, tumbles through dry grass, and lies still. But it is breathing. It has not mastered the sky. It has only learned the rule that will follow it for the rest of its life. The air can hold a dragon, but only if the dragon respects the wind. From that day forward, the world becomes larger and far more dangerous. The nest is no longer enough. Hunger pulls the young dragon down into the valley, where every meal has a cost. Small prey comes first. Lizards sunning on warm rocks, ground birds hiding in grass, fish trapped in shallow pools after rain. The dragon learns to attack from above, using gravity as part of the strike. It does not need to be fast for long. It only needs one clean moment. But the valley is not empty. Coyotes follow its scent. Eagles scream from the high air. Wolves watch from the tree line. They do not rush in. They wait for weakness. At this age, fire is still unreliable. If a dragon could breathe flame, it would likely come from chemistry inside the body. Special organs might collect flammable gases from digestion, or produce a reactive fluid stored near the throat. A hard, mineral-rich plate in the mouth could create a spark when the dragon snaps its jaws or compresses air through the chamber. The result would not be endless fire. It would be a short, violent burst. Useful, dangerous, expensive. Every flame would cost energy. The throat would need heat-resistant tissue. The nostrils would need to close. The tongue, eyes, and wing membranes would need protection. If the dragon breathed flame too close to its own body, the weapon could become a wound. So the young dragon uses fire rarely. A hiss of smoke may scare off a scavenger. A flash of heat may startle a rival. But its true weapons are still claws, teeth, patience, and the ability to appear from above with almost no warning. One evening, a fox creeps toward a half-eaten fish near the rocks. The young dragon lifts its head, opens its mouth, and releases a ragged burst of orange light. The flame lasts less than a second. The fox runs. The dragon keeps the fish. It is not power yet. It is a warning. By its third year, the dragon is too large for most predators to attack directly. But larger does not mean safer. Now it stretches nearly 20 feet from nose to tail, with wings wide enough to cover a small garage. The body demands more food every week. Lizards and ground birds are no longer enough. It must hunt deer, wild goats, young boar, and sometimes pull fish from cold mountain lakes. This is when hunger becomes its greatest enemy. A missed hunt is not just a disappointment. It is lost energy. 2 missed hunts weaken the muscles. Too many missed hunts can keep a dragon grounded. And a grounded dragon, no matter how frightening, is an animal in trouble. The young male learns this in winter, For 3 days, snow covers the higher slopes. Wind tears through the cliffs. Prey hides in timber and stone. The dragon burns energy just to stay warm. On the 4th morning, he finds a mountain goat crossing a narrow ledge. The goat is small enough to take, large enough to matter. One successful strike could feed him for days. The dragon climbs to a ridge and waits. A bad hunter rushes. A living hunter reads the air. The wind rises from the valley, then shifts sideways. The dragon spreads his wings, drops from the ridge, and folds his body into the dive. For 1 perfect second, the attack is silent. Then the storm changes. A mountain gust hits from the side. The goat bolts across loose rock. The dragon turns late. One wing clips the cliff with a sound like tearing leather. He crashes hard. From a distance, it is not dramatic. No great battle. No roar shaking the sky. Just a young predator lying in the snow with one wing torn and one leg twisted under him. But in nature, small injuries can become death sentences. For days, he cannot fly. Ravens gather first, then foxes, then wolves. They keep their distance, but they watch. The dragon still has jaws. He still has claws. Smoke curls from his mouth when they come too close. But he cannot chase. He cannot patrol. He cannot choose the best hunting ground. For the first time, the future ruler of the valley survives by waiting. The torn wing heals slowly, leaving a pale scar across the membrane. The limp fades, but never completely. From that winter on, he carries a mark every time he opens his wings. The scar does not make him weaker. It makes him smarter. When he finally climbs back to a high ridge, he does not leap wildly. He waits. He tastes the air. He feels the wind push against the torn edge of the healing wing. Only when the gust is right does he step into the sky. That patience keeps him alive. Years pass and the scarred male reaches his prime. Now he is nearly 30 feet long, with a wingspan close to 50 feet, as wide as several cars parked side by side. He weighs more than a large horse, but he must stay lean. Every pound matters. Too much weight turns strength into a burden. He rules a territory of cliffs, forest edges, open valleys, and cold rivers. Not because he wants glory, because his body needs space. A predator this large must control enough land to find food through every season. In spring, deer move through the valley with newborn fawns. In summer, goats climb the high slopes. In fall, salmon fill the rivers. In winter, every animal becomes a calculation of risk and reward. The dragon changes with the seasons. At dawn, he glides along ridges when the air is cool and steady. During the hottest hours, he rests in shade to save water and energy. When storms build, he moves lower before the cliffs become traps. He knows which slopes make warm air rise after sunset. He knows where injured deer hide. He knows which lakes freeze last. Experience has become a weapon. One morning, hunger pushes him toward the valley floor. A herd of deer feeds in the open grass. The dragon circles high above them, not directly overhead, but beyond the sun where his shadow is harder to see. He waits for the herd to spread out. He waits for one animal to drift too far from the others. Then he folds his wings. The valley reacts in seconds. The deer scatter. Birds burst from the trees. Dust lifts from the grass. The dragon drops like a falling piece of night, opens his wings at the last moment, and extends his talons. The strike is fast. The struggle is not. For the deer, the fight ends quickly. For the dragon, survival continues. He feeds, but he does not waste. Meat becomes muscle. Muscle becomes flight. Flight becomes the next hunt. In nature, power is never owned. It is rented from the body one meal at a time. But a territory that holds food will eventually draw another dragon. Late in summer, a younger male enters the valley. He is smaller, faster, and bold enough to circle the scarred male's cliffs. He lands near a ridge marked with scent and scrapes his claws through the stone. The message is clear. This place can be challenged. A fight between two dragons could kill both. Broken teeth could make feeding impossible. A torn wing could mean starvation. A damaged eye could turn a hunter into prey for winter. So the first battle is display. The scarred male rises tall on the ridge. His throat expands. Air moves through pressure sacs behind the jaw. A low sound rolls across the rocks, deep enough to make loose pebbles tremble. The younger dragon answers. For a moment, the valley holds its breath. Then the scarred male opens his mouth. The flame is short, bright, and controlled. It does not burn the whole mountainside. It does not need to. It flashes close to the ground, hot enough to blacken the grass, loud enough to shock the rival, and steady enough to prove the old scar has not stolen his aim. The message is simple in animal terms. This territory is defended. The cost of fighting may be too high. The younger male steps forward once. The scarred male lowers his head. 1 second passes. Then the challenger turns away. The valley belongs to the scarred male for another season. But territory is only one part of survival. A species continues only if the next generation makes it past the cliff. When the winds change, a female arrives from the eastern mountains. She is smaller, with darker scales and an old scar across one shoulder. She does not approach carelessly. Courtship between animals this powerful is dangerous. One wrong bite, one badly timed landing, one defensive burst of flame could injure both. For days, they circle the same ridges at a distance. He brings food near the upper slopes, but not too close. She watches him fly. He watches how she lands. In a world where broken wings mean death, skill is part of courtship. Eventually, she accepts the territory. Weeks later, she chooses a nesting cave high above the valley floor. It is warm, dry, and difficult to reach. The floor is lined with mineral sand and broken stone. The entrance is narrow enough to defend, but open enough for rising air. She lays a small clutch of eggs. Large predators rarely raise many young at once. Each egg is expensive. Each one is a bet against weather, hunger, rivals, and time. The male does not feed the hatchlings like a songbird might, but his territory matters. By keeping rivals away and hunting near the cliffs, he protects the space around the nest. Still, nature gives no guarantees. One egg never hatches. One hatchling breaks the shell too early and does not survive the cold night. 2 remain. They stumble near the cave mouth, small, unsteady, and easy to lose. Their wings drag against the stone. Their eyes blink against the light. One snaps at an insect and misses. The other hides under the edge of a warm rock. The scarred male watches them from a ridge across the valley. He does not know pride the way humans describe it, but his body knows something older. The valley must continue after him. For a while, the cycle begins again. The young grow. The female guards the cave. The male patrols the ridges. Below them, deer move through spring grass. Wolves follow river paths. Birds read the wind. And every animal lives inside the same invisible system of hunger and risk. Then slowly age arrives. It does not come like an enemy in battle. It comes as a missed landing, a longer rest after flight, a hunt abandoned because the wind is not worth the danger. The scar across the wing tightens in cold weather. His teeth wear down. Old wounds ache before storms. One eye clouds at the edge, turning part of the world into blur. He can still breathe flame, but every burst takes more from him, and he uses it less. A young dragon returns to the valley. Perhaps it is the same rival from years before. Perhaps another male born beyond the mountains. It does not matter. The challenger is in his prime, and the scarred male is not. This time, the display is slower. The throat expands, but not as fully. The call rolls across the rocks, but with less force. The flame comes, but shorter than before. The younger dragon does not retreat. There is no need for a long battle to understand what is happening. Nature rarely gives power a ceremony. It simply shifts the balance until the old ruler can no longer hold what he once defended. The scarred male has survived hunger, storms, broken wings, rivals, and winter. Now time is the enemy he cannot drive away. He leaves the highest nesting cliffs. The old cave, the strong winds, the best hunting ridges, they belong to another dragon now. He moves lower, toward slopes where the air is gentler and the flights are shorter. The hunting is poorer, but the risk is lower. For a while, experience keeps him alive. He feeds on fish trapped in shallow water. He steals from wolves when they leave a carcass too early. He finds warm caves that hold heat after sunset. He knows the stone paths that save his legs. He knows the ridges where even weak morning air can lift an old body for a few more miles. But every season takes something. One cold morning, the valley fills with pale light. Ravens circle above a low ridge. The scarred male lies beside a slope warmed by the first sun. His wings are folded close. His head rests against the stone. The torn membrane that once marked his survival is still visible, pale against the darker skin. He does not climb to the ridge. The valley is quiet. Ravens find him first. Foxes come later. Insects follow. Rain softens the ground. Roots reach through the soil. The body that once terrified the valley returns to the land that fed it. This is not failure. This is the circle that holds nature together. And maybe this is how dragon legends could begin. A rare animal on a distant cliff. A flash of chemical flame in the dark. Giant tracks in ash after a storm. A scarred wing passing over a village at sunset. People would remember that. They would tell the story again and again. The animal would grow larger with every telling. His hunger would become evil. His fire would become magic. His territory would become a kingdom. Its shadow would become a warning whispered to children. And after enough time, biology would become myth. But if dragons were real, the truth might be even more powerful than the legend. They would be terrifying, but not unstoppable. They would be strong, but never free from hunger. They would breathe fire, but only at a cost. They would rule the sky, but only by obeying the wind. Like every creature on Earth, they would be shaped by the same forces that shape life everywhere. Birth, fear, hunger, injury, mating, age, death. Not magic. Life. Thank you for exploring the wild with Wildlife Realms. Subscribe for more journeys into the heart of nature.